And good evening and welcome to the June 27th, 23 Mangan Park Neighborhood Association. My name is Jennifer Holden. I'm the Mangan Park Association lead, and I am happy to welcome some excellent speakers this evening. The first agenda item will be with Lieutenant Eric Forbeck of SacPD with our standard Mangan Park safety minutes, followed by a conversation about changes to recent or changes in California law that are altering how people are prosecuted. And so Assistant District Attorney Carolyn Massingale is here to talk to us about recent changes to laws. And I'm also hoping for an update on the Mangan Park nuisance property as well. And then after that, we have a bunch of summer in the city sorts of conversations. So that is the agenda, and I would like to welcome Lieutenant Eric Forbeck for agenda item number 1, Sacramento PD safety minutes with Mangan Park. How are you this evening, Lieutenant Eric?
I am good, and thank you for the, sorry, I have the radio on. Thank you for the invite. Again, my name is Eric Forbeck. I'm with the Sacramento Police Department. I've been here for over 34 years. I actually used to be one of your neighbors. I used to live on Bradway when I was a little baby CSO back in the day. I'm stepping in for Lieutenant Galliano, and then he has other captain. He's acting captain this week, so he's doing those duties. And I am the watch commander for districts 3, 4, and 5 tonight. So I'll talk quickly. I'll get some questions answered if you have them, and then I'm going to jump off to my other duties. So one of the things that Greg asked me to talk about was we have had a recent series, 3 break-ins of some Asian markets here off Freeport. That's the bad news. The good news is we actually have 2 in custody, and our investigators are actually doing some follow-up work on it. We also have the robbery series that the investigators are actually just made an arrest tonight on, and I don't have much detail on that. That was a little bit in the Mangan area and then also in different parts of the city. So they're just actually made the arrest tonight and working on that. So I don't have a lot to talk about on that. With that, I'm open for any questions, and if something I cannot answer right now, I'll make sure that you have my email, and if Jennifer would send it out to the folks, reach out to me. I'm actually in charge of the Mac Road Valley High area, but what I like to tell folks is if you see something that is law enforcement related, even if you see an officer's making a car stop or whatever they're doing, and you're just interested in what happened, if you send me an email with date, time, and location, I can research it. I can give you a summary of what happened, because I like people to know what's going on in their neighborhoods. And a lot of times it's a nut and burger, but sometimes it's something worth noting. So if it's something going on in your neighborhood, and sometimes I'll give some information back on something that happened, and all of a sudden it'll jog some memories on, oh, I saw this person doing some X, Y, and Z somewhere else. So please share my my email address with the group. And again, it can be anywhere in the city of Sacramento. I don't mind. And again, I just need date, time, and location, and I can basically look it up and let you know what it was. So with that
sounds excellent. Could you drop your email into the chat for us, please?
Yeah,
and I'll make certain that it follows the recording.
Yeah, I'll make sure that's on there then. And then with that, I'm open for questions. Does anybody have questions for me or the police department that I can either answer now or get a good work on it for when Greg comes back?
I always pause and wait for the other guests of Mangan Park to ask questions. Mikaeli, Marcia, Ben.
This is too easy. I need some tough questions.
Well, I'm about to make it tougher. If they don't come up with a question here in a second, I'll make it a little tougher for you.
Go for it.
I'm just surprised Mikaeli doesn't have a question. But maybe things are going really well down in Meadowview. He is with the Meadowview Neighborhood Association. So
yeah, I'm sure the question would be for me from there is the sideshows. Am I correct?
Well, that has been a hot topic all over the place. Do you have any updates on sideshows?
The first one, did my email go in? Did I post it?
It's there.
Okay. The first update is they're extremely random, but we're actually taking an aggressive approach to try to address it. As I'm sure was stated before, Delta Shores now has given us the authority to use our law enforcement laws, city laws, state laws, to enforce laws on their property, which is going to help out with dealing with the sideshows. My ask to the group and to anyone that sees them, if you see some folks starting to posse up and you don't see law enforcement there, and it's usually, you'll see the hot rod cars and stuff. And when I was a kid, we'd go out in the country and we'd race drag in the country roads and didn't bother anybody. Now they want to get in the middle of everybody's stuff. So if you see cars starting to posse up at like a, I don't know, any kind of like restaurant location or any parking lot, give us a call, because we might not know about it. And the sooner that we get on it, the faster we make these things go away. Sometimes we'll have advance notice because we have an officer who's in charge of running these sideshows, and he gets social media information from some different resources, and he'll have sometimes once in a while have an advance notice on one of these, but a lot of times they're just kind of a pop-up deal. So if you see cars starting to posse up at a parking lot or whatnot, please reach out to us. Non-emergency number, just say, hey, it looks like we have a sideshow starting, and that way we can at least start resources to it. Because being a watch commander, a lot of times I'm the only watch commander in the entire city. And so I'm monitoring the board, and as what will happen is our communications supervisor will send me a message, hey, just so you know, we have a sideshow. And then also I start looking for resources to deal with that. And the last one I worked, I was able to get resources from the CHP North, CHP South, Elk Grove, and our officers to work on it. So as soon as you see something, please reach out. So that's my update.
Got it. Which phone number is it best for people to call about sideshows? Is it the police non-emergency number, or are we calling it a 911 situation these days?
If it's 911, if you see violence or something happening that's a threat to somebody's life, yes, 911. If it's you have a group of folks that are starting to posse up, parking their cars, popping hoods, whatever, non-emergency is 916-808-5471, and just let the dispatcher know, hey, we have a sideshow that's starting to develop and we need to have some resources. And that way, like I said, it gives us at least a start on it. And 9 times out of 10, and I'm gonna knock on wood, when we show up, they scatter, unless it's these really huge ones that are like pre-events, and then those are a little bit more of a pain in the fanny to deal with. So.
And maybe it's on my end, but when you were giving the non-emergency number, the sound kind of hiccuped. So let me see if I heard it properly. The non-emergency number is 916-808-5471.
Yes, and you're hiccuping on my end too.
Oh dear. Okay. Well, I hope we managed to get a clear copy out there somewhere, because there is a lot of confusion about that. I'm forever on Nextdoor trying to clarify which number to call, because some people think everything's 911 or 311, and it's not.
Right.
And there was even just a recent incident in our park where I thought 311 was the appropriate way to call, and it turns out it was supposed to be the non-emergency number. So here I am trying to train people, and I whiffed it once myself when I reported 311 and not non-emergency. So
I do all the time.
Okay, that sounds good. Then the I think we're done with sideshows. Any more questions on sideshows? What to do? What's going on? All right, then. So my next question is back to Freeport Boulevard and the recent thefts and everything. I know that you made one arrest this afternoon, and there really isn't much to release about that arrest right now. Is there any more information about the Freeport Boulevard corridor and the rash of that? I know it got bad recently, but I've actually been kind of hollering about it for about 2 years. So anything else that you can tell us?
I don't have anything else as far as Freeport. The big one, that the great one we talked about, was the Asian markets. And so let me look at my stats real quick, so I don't leave you guys with nothing. Yeah, for robberies, we don't have anything in that area, which is good, knock on wood. And then again, most of the burglaries are all related to the Asian market theft. So that's what we have so far.
Asian, I'm thinking about Freeport Boulevard, and I'm mentally ticking off all of the Asian markets in my head.
Autos, there's
Odos was targeted.
We have Odo's, we have the Asian Food Center. I'm sorry, that one's up right off Broadway, but kind of the same area. And then we have SF Market. So it was basically it was Freeport and then a couple other locations. And we also have a couple locations in the east area, which would be east of Highway 99 that were affected by it.
East of 99. Okay. Oh, wow. So it kind of went a little broader.
Yeah.
Than just Freeport Boulevard. Okay. Wow. All right. I'll go check in with Odo's. They're right around the corner from us. They're technically not a Mangan Park business, but a lot of Mangan Park residents shop there. It's super easy to get there from Mangan Park. Okay. Oh, I have a little feedback of my own to give to SacPD. We've asked for a lot of help on 34th Avenue in Mangan Park, and that's the street that runs. It's basically
I used to live there.
The road that runs parallel with our southern border.
Right.
And it goes against our park and our swimming pool and the former city tree nursery and a residential section as well. We've had a nonstop battle for years with a variety of crimes along 34th Avenue, as well as people living in tents, cars, and campers on 34th Avenue. It's not been a good situation for any of us. We did a lot of work this last spring. I'm happy to report there is some improvement. We have not had campers that are obviously dealing drugs for about 3 to 4 weeks. We think that's great because it's been years since we could say we went 3 to 4 weeks without a camper that was being open and closed to do business. Basically at the end of my street. So that part's nice. We still have some people we think are sleeping on site. Turns out the former city tree nursery where they're sleeping is very close to some critical infrastructure. And I'm not certain they're supposed to be there. But we've got the numbers down to about 6. So it's no longer where we're looking at 10 or 20. So in some ways that's improved. However, I worry about conditions for those 6 people or so that are there. So it's no longer like an obvious you can just drive down the street and in 30 seconds count off the suspicious activity. You now have to really know where you're looking and pause in order to see it. We're grateful for that improvement. Of course, we ask for more. But just the fact that we've gone 4 weeks without a drug dealing camper is a perk. And we are grateful for all of the support that SacPD has given us to get us to this place where we aren't like clocking when the camper gets unlocked and when it gets locked back up again, which is an activity we sometimes do. So thank you. Relay our gratitude to the POP team and to Lieutenant Greg Galliano and the rest of SacPD for helping us achieve this level of peace. I can also say that I have not had nearly as many like 2 a.m. texts from neighbors saying that they're concerned about something that's going on, but they don't want to go poke their nose into it because they don't know what it is. So that part's also nice that I'm getting contacted a lot less about activity along 34th Avenue. And it's been, well, pretty much, it hasn't been this quiet for me since I started the neighborhood association years ago. So that part's nice.
Knock on some wood.
Knock on some wood. We're really, truly grateful. We hope it lasts. Of course, we want everybody taken care of. I was in the 4.5-hour Measure O homelessness meeting this afternoon. And listening to all of the different perspectives and sides and concerns for how to provide the best care that we can for those who are without houses. And yes, we want everyone to be provided for. However, we're going to make that happen, I'm not certain.
Was that Measure O meeting,
yes.
Was that with the city and the county?
There were today at noon.
Was that meeting with
City
the city
council
and the
held.
county?
No, there were some county staff in the meeting. giving reports on things that the county is doing as a part of the city-county partnership. Some of that information is very interesting if you're asking for that. Like one question that was asked of a county homeless representative was the residential drug addiction facility that a year ago had a waiting list of 600 people, currently has beds available. And so there was a discussion about how that's possible when there's a residential drug facility. We know that there's a lot of people experiencing homeless who also have a drug addiction problem, but the county facility has beds available when a year ago they had 600 people on the waiting list. So that definitely bears looking into on this situation, but that's a topic for another day and not for Lieutenant Eric, who has other SacPD business to conduct. So I think that wraps up my report for you, Eric. Effie, do you have any questions for Lieutenant Eric? I think Effie's good. Just so you know, Effie, you're on mute, but I take by that smile that you're good. Everything's fine, and welcome to the meeting, Effie. Good to see you here. All right, Lieutenant Eric, I think that is everything about Mangan Park safety minutes for the day, unless somebody else has a last minute comment for the good of the order.
I just have one comment. You mentioned folks texting you at 2 or 3 in the morning sometimes. If it's worth the text to you, it's definitely worth a phone call to us. If you have something that's starting to that shows up, and I always tell people that you get the hairs on the back of your neck that kind of stick up a little bit and like it doesn't look right. It doesn't look like right to you because you live in the neighborhood. It's not going to look right to us. So call us. You can text Jennifer afterwards, but call us so we at least get out there and address it. So even if it's something as simple as we knock on the door and we make contact with somebody, having somebody identified that for the future is huge for us. So if you have something that's bothering you, call SacPD.
I appreciate that invitation and that offer. And I will absolutely relay that to people, but I think one of the reasons they contact me is if they contact SacPD, they're going to have to put their name on something. And they're scared to do that.
Yeah, we do allow people to do stuff anonymously, and we get it all the time. So don't let that be a fear. You can always go, hey, I live at 123 Main Street. There's a car that just showed up. It doesn't belong here. I'm not sure who's in it. And I want to remain anonymous. They'll actually put that on the CAD call, and it'll be in bold on the top of the call. So I think it's it'll be bold.
Well, I appreciate knowing that there's the option for this. I'm surprised to hear that, to be honest. It was standing that if I've made inquiries. If a neighbor has witnessed a drug deal in progress, in order for that to be something that would allow for SacPD to make an arrest for drug dealing, I've been told that my neighbors must give their name. If it's anonymous, they can cruise by, but they cannot unless they see the arrest drug dealing themselves, which anytime you're in a cop car, you won't see. Then they can't make an arrest. They'll just stop by and check on the activity, but the moment they're gone, it's back. So neighbors, are very leery of reporting what they see, because in order for it to be actionable, their name has to be on it.
Okay, it's true and kind of false. So the truth part is, yeah, we have to actually have a witness on a felony crime or a misdemeanor crime. But the other part is, even if they say, oh, I observed drug dealing, and they don't want to be they want to remain anonymous, that's fine. We can still go out there and make contact with the person and identify them. A lot of times when we identify the person, we'll find a different reason to further investigate, say it being probation, parole, different things that are nefarious going on with the vehicle or things like that. So even if somebody remains anonymous, like, hey, I call them 123 Main Street regarding this van, I think they're dealing drugs, I want to remain anonymous, we can still come out there and contact the folks and say we make an arrest. We won't use it that initial. I mean, we'll say, yeah, we got a call for service, but that's basically it. We don't need the person's name. They don't need to testify. So if that helps explain things.
Well, it definitely helps to have that on a recording that I can send out to them.
Please do.
And let them hear your response so that we can continue to sort this out and work this out amongst ourselves. Because that perception that their name is
Right.
needed as them, we live here.
Right.
We've got nowhere else to go. This is our spot.
Understand. And I purposely gave out my email address. So if they want to have a one-on-one conversation, send me an email. Don't call me because I'm always bad about calling back. But as soon as I get an email, then I start the conversation and I can call you after that. So feel free, anybody in this group or whoever you send this out to, reach out to me and I'll have a conversation with you, and it'll remain anonymous as well. How's that?
That sounds very good. That part sounds reassuring. That we can continue to work out how to make, that we can have a private conversation about how to keep us all safe while we're reporting. Will probably go over very, very well. I have checked in with the DA. If it does go to prosecution, the word is very firmly he will need a name. But that's if it goes to prosecution. So we'll see how it goes. We'll have a conversation with you. I'll keep up those conversations, and we'll sort out how we can keep working together and make things safer for everybody. Mangan Park is very happy to welcome people from all kinds of different neighborhoods to our meetings. And so, whatever is going on in Mangan Park is also going on in other neighborhoods. So the conversations are important and valuable, and I'm glad we can have these conversations together.
All right.
Anything else, or should we let Lieutenant Eric back to his regular duties?
All right.
All right, that's great. Thank you so very much, Lieutenant Eric. Give the rest of SacPD our regards, and have a beautiful July and a safe 4th of July, and I hope to see you again soon.
Ditto. Thank you for the invite. Have a good night.
Bye-bye. And we are also very happy to welcome Assistant District Attorney Carolyn Massingale, who is kindly and warmly offered on a very busy day to come and talk to us about recent changes in California laws that are altering law enforcement and prosecution. So thank you so very much. Welcome, Carolyn Massingale. How are you this evening?
Fine. How are you doing?
Oh, peachy keen, thanks.
So I can't really speak to how law enforcement has changed since the enactment of some laws. I can speak, though, to what the laws are that have come about over the last 10 years and some of the things that, we're seeing as a result of those laws.
That sounds great. I do not want to put you in any compromised positions for talking to us. Only speak to what is with your wheelhouse, within your law and within your professional boundaries. So please do share with us the extent that your professionalism permits.
Thank you. I know, Jennifer, when we spoke, you wanted me to kind of discuss Prop 47. And some of the things to educate some of your viewers on what Prop 47 is. Is that right?
Yes, there's been some chatter about Prop 47 lately.
Yeah. So Prop 47 was passed in 2014, and it was entitled the Safe Neighborhoods and Schools Act. And when that went into effect, it had 3 major changes. First, it classified many theft and drug offenses that were once felonies, or what we also call offenses that are wobblers, meaning at the DA's discretion, a DA could file the offense as either a felony or a misdemeanor. And some of those offenses became straight misdemeanors. It also authorized individuals who were currently serving felony sentences for some of those offenses that now qualified as misdemeanors under Prop 47 to petition the court for resentencing while they were incarcerated. And then lastly, it authorized defendants or people who had suffered convictions prior to Prop 47, when those offenses were felonies, to petition the court to have their conviction reduced from a felony to a misdemeanor. So I kind of had 3 parts that affected our criminal justice system. Now, as of right now, it's 2023, so we're, several years removed. So the second portion, that, individuals who are serving prison sentences during that time period, it's probably not very active. We're not going to see people who are generally serving periods of incarceration from 9 years ago for some of these offenses. But I would anticipate that people would probably continue to petition the court to have their offenses that were once felonies reduced to misdemeanors. Now, things that we're still currently seeing is that some of these offenses that were felonies, generally theft-related offenses and drug-related offenses, are now misdemeanors. And those are the things that Prop 47, that's what we see on a day-to-day basis. So this doesn't necessarily affect the way we prosecute cases. If a law enforcement officer, issues a citation for a misdemeanor and sends it to the district attorney's office, we're going to file the case if we believe we can prove that case beyond a reasonable doubt. Whether it's it's a misdemeanor now or it's a felony 9 years ago, we're still going to file our cases generally the same way. What it's going to be different is whether before it would have been a felony filing, or the district attorney's office may have had the discretion to file an offense as a felony or a misdemeanor. So now those offenses are straight misdemeanors. And like I said before, most of those offenses, or all of them, are possession-related drug offenses and theft-related offenses. Has anyone in the group, heard of Prop 47 or had any type of experience with it? No? Okay. Well, for many of the businesses in our community, they have been dealing with it. And the reason they've been dealing with it is because, as for the theft-related offenses, the value of the property taken is that the new benchmark of why it's a misdemeanor. So the value for property taken does not exceed $950. So anything under $950 is now going to be a misdemeanor. And that's really where I think that a lot of the businesses are seen and hurting in some of these cases now. And now, additionally, felony possession offenses where someone could have been charged as a felony for drugs are now all misdemeanors. Initially, earlier I said some of the drug offenses were called wobblers, meaning if a case was referred to the district attorney's office, for example, a drug offense, and it was considered a wobbler, meaning we could file it as a misdemeanor or a felony, there were various, things that a district attorney could look at to see why they would file it as a misdemeanor versus a felony. Maybe a person's, prior history with drug offenses, prior convictions, or maybe even the quantity of drugs that person possessed. Now it doesn't matter based off the person's history or even the quantity of drugs they possessed. Regardless, it's going to be a misdemeanor. So that's what Prop 47 really changed. Now, Prop 47 did have a provision in it that disqualified certain instances where these offenses wouldn't be misdemeanors. If a person has a certain record for enumerated violent offenses that they've suffered as prior convictions, or if they were required to register as a sex offender. But as our laws have changed, Prop 47 is not the only thing that has changed over the last 10 years. So when Prop 47, you look at the language of the statute and it says a person who with a prior conviction for a sex offense where they're required to register as a sex offender, all of those sex offenses back in 2014 were mandatory lifetime sex offender registration. So if you were convicted of a misdemeanor sex offense or a felony sex offense, those things required a lifetime mandatory sex offender registration. But in 2021, the legislature changed that as well. So now if you are convicted of a misdemeanor or a felony sexual offense, doesn't always require mandatory lifetime sex registration. They've changed it into a tier system based off of the type of sex offense that you have committed. So, and you can look this up in the penal code. it, for yourself. So no longer is every sexual offense a lifetime registration. Depending on the crime, it could be 10-year registration, 20-year registration, or a lifetime registration. And that's, enumerated in the penal code about, which ones fall under those categories. So when Prop 47 comes out and says, hey, people who are required for mandatory registration, aren't going to receive the benefit of Prop 47. That's not now necessarily true based off of the 2021 amendments to who is required to register as a sex offender and for how long. So those are two of some very major changes that we've seen in the last 10 years. Another thing that doesn't necessarily impact filing, but is more on the back end, kind of like the sex offender registration that has changed, was that in 2020, the length of probation for misdemeanors and felonies changed. So in California, prior to 2020, if you were convicted of a misdemeanor offense, your term of probation was 3 years. If you were convicted of a felony offense, your term of probation was 5 years. So after the passage of this statute, it's AB 1950, now every misdemeanor has a probation term of 1 year. And every felony, well, most felonies, I'm not going to say every, most felonies went from a 5-year probationary term to a 2-year probationary term. So this lessens the supervision someone receives after they're convicted of an offense, than the less supervision they receive by the probation department. So these are some, major changes that we've seen. So not only are did Prop 47 reclassify a lot of theft and drug-related offenses, there's also been a reclassification of mandatory sex registration. There's also been a reclassification on the term of probation after someone's convicted. And then also we've seen in the last few years that we're on a no bail system now, zero bail for many of these offenses. And you can go to the Sac County website and type in Sac County Court, .gov and type in bail schedule, and it'll pull up for you so you can see all the offenses and what their current bail is listed at. And these are all things that, everyone can research for themselves. So those are some of the major things that we have seen, I think, that have changed our criminal justice system over the last 10 years. Any questions? I know it's a lot to take in.
I'm going to start off this time, which is unusual, but one, it's to let people think, but also I think there's a couple of basic questions we can ask while they're thinking, which is one, what is the difference between a misdemeanor and a felony? Why are all of these shifts significant in the changes that we're seeing?
I think it's, significant. Well, just not based off our filing, because we're going to file whatever the legislature, passes, of course, because the district attorney's office is not a reporting agency. Everything goes to law enforcement. And if they refer a case to us and we can prove it beyond a reasonable doubt, we're going to file it, whether it's a misdemeanor or a felony. But the consequences at the back end and the level of supervision on the back end are probably the biggest changes. So a felony generally has a prison term with it, and it's has a low end and a high end of the amount of time a person can receive. So usually the low end for like a drug offense would be 16 months state prison, and the high end would be a 3-year state prison sentence. For a misdemeanor, the consequence is very different. Depending on the type of misdemeanor, it could be a misdemeanor that has a maximum sentence of 180 days, so 6 months, or a maximum sentence of 1 year. But a misdemeanor offense cannot exceed 1 year in custody. So that's probably the major difference between a misdemeanor filing and a felony filing, is the amount of time an individual could receive. And then, of course, the amount of supervision after that person served their sentence by the probation department or by, if they're on Department of Corrections for parole.
Okay, thank you for that answer. And then another one is, What are the reasons given for making these changes and reclassifying this? Why are we making these changes in the last 10 years?
You would have to ask your local legislature for that. That's beyond my pay grade.
Got it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, those are my what I was thinking of is a couple of things to work on while other questions are percolating. So,
Yeah.
my
My
else
would
out
be
there.
my suggestion would be if people are disappointed with the changes in their laws, Prop 47 was, passed by the voters. And, when I first started speaking with you guys, it was labeled, safe schools and public safety, Safe Schools Act. And I think people get caught up sometimes. We're all busy, but we also want to participate in our government. And so we sometimes trust the labels that are put on some of these propositions. And we're waiting to the last minute and we're not doing our research just because we all have busy lives. But it is really important to take a look beyond that header and to see what the statutes and the propositions are really about, because they can, if they're actually enacted and the voters pass them, they can have significant consequences. I think more than people actually realize. So my suggestion would be to take the time, see what the language of the statute is, actually read it and make sure that the values of that statute are in line with, the values that you want to see, in our government, in our communities. And it's also important to, elect people, who represent our values, because Prop 47 is passed by the voters, but the other two pieces of legislation that I talked about, like the sex offender registration and changing the terms of probation, that's passed by our elected officials. And I think it's really important to, when we elect our officials, to get to know them and to know what they stand for, and not just vote based off if there's an R next to their name or a D next to their name, to really take the time to see what they're about and to make that sure that their values align with the values that we want to see in our community. So those would probably be my takeaways.
Thank you very much. So the floor is open for questions. Who wants to go first?
Hey, Jen.
Hey, Matt.
I don't see a hand thingy, so so I didn't.
It works. It works. It's a small room. We can roll like this in a small room.
Okay, all right. So I mean, I'll just, my story already, but and a couple other people do, but basically, to put all this in layman's terms, I've been clean and sober since 1997 due to the previous legislation, what she was talking about before, Prop 47 and all that. And it was because of accountability that I'm actually here and like a productive member of society. And the misdemeanor and the felony laws, it's funny when she was talking, she's like, well, probation was, and I raised my hand up with 3 fingers because I knew like it was 3 years and I knew it was 5 years for a felony. And it's odd that I still remember that stuff, but I still remember my X reference number as well. And those are things that I remember, because what happens is today, basically in layman's terms, back then, if I got caught with, say, even a baggie that had a little bit of crystal meth or something in it, that was pretty much a felony and guaranteed you're going to jail on it. Now, it's basically, okay, we're going to throw that away. Bye. What she was talking about with the shoplifting, I mean, we didn't dare do that because they would catch you and they would arrest you. And the people in the stores had the authority to keep you and detain you, and now they don't. And I'd read an article too, going on the sex offense, that a study they published in 19, that they estimate that 50% of our homeless population are registered offenders that haven't been in contact with their, they haven't checked in. So they're kind of living off the grid and among us in the public in homeless camps. So it's tough. And I agree. We have to, like, there has to be accountability. We have to bring it back. And we're not doing anything by like mollycoddling people, and you can lean to the side of compassion. And I get that. And you have to be compassionate, but at the same time, like when you were little, your dad would tell you, don't touch the stove, but you touched it and you got burnt and you never touched it again. So, I mean, if we don't learn from our mistakes and our behaviors, we're not ever going to get better. And I'm only here today because I did go to jail and I did my time and I got treatment and I got recovery. And now I get to hang out with wonderful people like you, who frankly, I used to make fun of and think you were squares and weirdos, but now I'm a square and a weirdo. So that's all I got. And thanks for your presentation. I really appreciated it.
Well, thanks, Matt, for sharing your story. I think that we appreciate a different perspective. And I hope you know that, you know, your district attorney, your sheriff, your chief of police, you know, they're all dedicated to your public safety, but they have to follow the rules too, the rules that the legislature has passed. So they're doing everything they can with the tools that are currently given to them. And, you know, maybe the tools change in the future, which will, you know, change how our community, you know, looks in terms of our public safety. But as of right now, we have to work with what we got. And I think your chief of police and your sheriff and your DA are committed to, you know, to trying to ensure that Sacramento is safe.
Thank both of you. And I see two hands up. I'm sorry, I didn't use hand went up first. Was it Effie's or Michaeli's?
I think Effie's hand's been up for a while.
All right, let's go with Effie. Thank you, Effie. Unmute yourself, please.
Okay. All right. Well, good evening to everyone, and it's a pleasure to be here to hear this information pertaining to the felonies and the misdemeanors. That means that things have certainly changed quite a bit, and it's taken place with Prop 47. My question at this point is the felonies and the misdemeanors based upon who is committing each one category, whether it's a felony or misdemeanor. I want to correctly understand it. Now, you're sharing with us that whoever committed it, whether it's a felony or misdemeanor, that they won't have to, because of the choices they made, there won't be any consequences at all. They'll just be.
No, I'm not saying that. What this proposition affected is how we file a case, not necessarily in terms of the consequence. Some of the consequences have been shortened. I'm going to use that, but they're not taken away. So before, if a case came to us and it was classified as a felony, we would file it as a felony case. And the consequence for a felony is greater than a consequence for a misdemeanor. Okay. So now with the change in the law, with the felony being reclassified now as, hey, I can only file this case as a misdemeanor, you know, depending on the misdemeanor, the consequence could be 180 days maximum. That's not necessarily saying that we would, you know, give them 180 days right off the bat. That's the maximum time they could serve, or, you know, 365 days, depending on the type of misdemeanor. Whereas a felony, you know, there'd be a prison sentence associated with it. And the minimum prison sentences start at 16 months state prison.
Okay, my next question, because this came up pertaining to the drugs. And here in Hampton Station, we have had more than at least 3 major drug buses, and they were caught, and They were adults, I believe. Now, if you have a youth, and let's say it's a misdemeanor or a felony, and say it's just shoplifting, are they charged based upon their age? And does
Oh,
it
yes.
remain on their records after they
Well,
serve?
the juvenile system is completely different than the adult system. So, anyone under the age of 18, it's literally completely different. And the way those cases are filed and the consequences for those cases, they're treated very different based off the age of the individual. But yeah, so they're very different. They're handled differently.
Okay, so to get the answer in reference to if they were juvenile, would that remain on their records when it comes to the employment or their character or seeking jobs or anything of that nature? Would that remain on their records?
I don't believe so. I don't believe so, but I don't want to speak out of turn. Like I said, the juvenile system is a very different animal than the adult system, and I work in the adult system. But it's my understanding that I don't believe that those things stay on their record in terms of when they, get past the age of 18 to start applying for jobs and such.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Mikaeli, I believe you're next.
Hey, so a lot of these crimes, are we talking about mostly property crimes, thefts, and things of that
Property
nature?
crimes and drug crimes.
And drug crimes. And we say drug crimes, are we talking about sales? Are we talking about possession, or
Possession.
what level of drugs are we talking about? Okay, so simple possessions, it sounds like they're not charging those much anymore, if at all.
No,
Unless
case,
they're related to a larger felony or something like that. But a routine
No.
possession of drugs would probably just get somebody a ticket or something like that, or
well,
probation.
I can't speak for, the amount of cases in terms of that the police departments or the sheriff's office, how many they send us,
Right.
but if they, cite somebody for a drug possession and they send it to the district attorney's office and we review it and we can prove it beyond a reasonable doubt, then we are
Okay.
filing those cases as misdemeanors.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, if you catch somebody with a small amount of street drugs on them, chances are more likely than not that you won't be prosecuting those folks, unless it's repeat offenders or something other related to that. But the question I had to really want to talk about was these thefts. You think they're related mostly to drugs or related to like homeless people trying to survive? What would be your, and I got to take that back again too, because you work in the district attorney's office, you don't work on the street, so maybe that's not the right question for you.
Yeah, I don't think, unfortunately, I'm the right person to answer that because I'm not a first responder. I'm not, like you said, on the streets day in and day out, seeing what our law enforcement officers are encountering. I see it after they've, made an arrest or issued a citation, and we review it based off of what we can prove.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you for your questions, Mikaeli. Marcia, you're next.
I really appreciate, thank you very much. I appreciate the up-to-date detail on this and on this legislation and proposition that was passed. And also some ideas about how we got here with it. I think if the public had understood how it was going to actually play out, it might have been looked at differently at the time of voting on it. One of the concerns as a citizen I have is just being exposed to, let's say, theft. This has been my exposure, is basically in stores, shopping, and all around me. And I can think of a particular time at Safeway, I was just doing my shopping and saw 3 people packing food into a backpack, which they were going to walk out of the store with. And it just puts, my comment is that citizens don't quite know what to do about this when it's just happening all around. And I found myself kind of in a quandary. Is there do I have some obligation to do something? I definitely know not to interface with an individual who's breaking the law for something like this. Because you don't know what else is happening there.
No, absolutely. I mean, I don't think it's your obligation to intervene, but I mean, and this is kind of going back to what Jennifer talked about earlier, about reporting. You know, if you don't report it, it's like it didn't happen.
Right.
So it's up to you in terms of how involved you want to get. Just because you don't have to intervene doesn't mean you can't report it. Report it to the store, stick around and talk to law enforcement about what you saw. Because I actually disagree with Jennifer in this one respect. I know people want to remain anonymous, but everyone's on this neighborhood association for a reason, because they want to see change. And change isn't going to happen unless people participate in their communities and hold people accountable. And the way we hold people accountable is by making arrests successful and prosecutions successful. And officers can come out and make an arrest, but unless someone steps up and is a witness and will come to court and testify, we're not going to be able to make that arrest turn into a successful prosecution. So a person could be arrested and then let go because no one's willing to stand up and say, I saw this person give something to somebody else and there was an exchange of money, or I saw drugs. Those are the things that we need in court to be able to prove to a jury, 12 people from our community, that a crime occurred. So I completely understand people's hesitation and wanting to remain anonymous, and not wanting people to know where you live. In order to hold people accountable and to let them know that, 34th Avenue, they're going to arrest you and you're going to be prosecuted for a crime. In order to see that follow through, people have to participate and people have to cooperate with law enforcement, and they have to cooperate with the prosecution. Otherwise, it's going to be a revolving door of a lack of accountability.
So, thank you. My comment on that is, if the stores don't have any longer, they're not detaining people who are shoplifting, let's just say, as an example. And then, because I did ask the store at the checkout, I talked to getting back to my example, I talked to the person there, and they were in the process of rearranging the store so that there was only one exit and there was going to be security there. And I think it was more of a deterrent than they were going to, quote unquote, nab a bunch of people who were breaking the law. I think they were just trying to set up some more deterrence, which I'm all about that. If they're not doing it in the first place, that's better for everybody around. Because you can do that, but if in fact nothing happens after that, if they can't be detained, then you can't go get into your pipeline, which I support. But
you don't know.
It was overwhelming. It was kind of overwhelming. I saw 3 different people in that experience, and they're all, stealing. And I'm kind of quite, well, but is this a person in need and I should pay for their food? Or do I just watch them? There wasn't anything to do until it was my turn to get up to where I was shopping. I didn't want to engage. And then I saw this, from what you've spoken to now, my understanding is that it would be difficult to do that. But this is costing, just let alone the physical risk that might be involved. This is costing all of us a lot of money. All this, the petty crime, what used to be called petty crime, but it's such a volume from what I'm hearing and what my personal exposure was recently. It's kind of hard to know how you grapple with that. But as a citizen, just watching it all happen around me, it was kind of, wow, what are my responsibilities? What do I do? what
I
is?
don't think
the
anyone
store-
can tell
what is
you
the
what to
store-
do.
What is the store gonna do? We don't know. We don't know what I think as a citizen, I don't know exactly what the new measures are, what the policies are of businesses, whether.
I don't think anyone can tell you what to do. I think you just have to do what you think is right in the moment.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
And thank you for your, Marcia. Matt, I see your hand is up and then Effie again.
Okay, and I had just a few more moments because I have to get back to kids and dinner, so.
Yeah, just a
Understood.
quick
I hear you.
question.
What's your max time? 7:10?
What time is it now?
7.
I have 7:04.
Okay, yeah.
Okay,
All right,
so
we got
just
a
a
hard
quick
finish
question.
at 7:10. So Matt, you get 2 minutes.
Maybe you can answer this, maybe you can't, but did I hear that they're just passing more legislation that companies like our supermarkets, Target, Walmart, etc., are basically the employees will get punished now if they try and interact with shoplifters? So basically they're just being told to let them go now. So we're making it easier for the shoplifters to continue what they're doing.
I think I know the legislation you're talking about. I think reviewed it a couple of weeks ago. I don't think it says that though. I know there was some headline that came out that talked about, banning employees from stopping people, but I don't actually think the legislation said that, but I'd have to take a more in-depth look before I can really, comment on it. But I don't think it punishes employees. I don't remember reading that anywhere in the legislation.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Thank you for your question, Matt. Effie?
Yes, I just want to comment on the conversation that the last lady,
Miss Marcia.
Miss Marcia, yeah. I understand when you're in a position and you're actually witnessing a crime at that point, such as someone taking and stealing. I were in a Family Dollar store, and I believe this person just had really put they were very, very bold. They put all these contents in this basket, and security was right there at the door. And so they make the exit to just walk out with all the items, and they get in a conflict with security. And I mean, they're going at it. And so I'm the customer in there also. And I'm thinking as I watch this, because it could have been really devastating and harmful, I'm thinking at this point, should I call the law or what? So I'm saying, well, when I get out of the store, I'm going to get in my car and call the police. And that's what I actually did and reported it, because the security and the person that was stealing at that time was actually going at it, and the security got the supply back. But I'm thinking this could have really been a very tragic incident at this time. So I think the best is to remove yourself, find a safe environment and space, and then make a decision.
I think you need to report. The police department, the sheriff's office, they're not going to know where to allocate resources unless you report crimes and they know where the issues are. If you don't report it, it's like it never happened.
Yeah.
So in the end, I mean, like I said, I can't tell anyone what to do or how involved to be, but it's not going to get better until we as a community start participating and tackling these issues.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Miss Effie. Thanks, Jen. Thanks, Mangan Park.
You gotta go?
Yep, gotta go.
All right, then I will handle a little bit of a closing on the conversation without, and I'll make certain that you have the recording as soon as it is available on YouTube, which should be in the next 2 days sometime. So thank you so much for being here. You've been
Thanks, Jen.
You've answered a lot of tough questions and field them with professionalism, and I'm very grateful.
Thank you. I appreciate your guys' time. Bye.
Bye. So Matt, I know your hand is still up. And she's gone, but you still want to ask your question on the record?
No, I just didn't put it down.
Got it. I'd also like to welcome Pat Landgraf. I believe you're with the Del Deo Neighborhood Association.
Yes.
Welcome to Mangan Park. So good to see you at the meeting tonight. We're just now transitioning out of the district attorney, the assistant district attorney conversation on recent changes in legislation. But I'm about to hold a debriefing conversation about that. So we'd love to have you join us for the debrief.
Okay, great.
So thoughts, people, on what we just heard about changes in the law, remaining thoughts, things to share, other things for us to take back to various agencies of law enforcement, all that good stuff. So who's got something to share? Chris.
Hey, Jen. Just in case somebody doesn't know me here, I'm Christina Rogers with the Land Park Community Association. So this information is actually no surprise to me. You know, I'm sure some people on the call, it's a lot of the information is not a surprise. We've heard it before. I think as a neighborhood association, it's really important to provide information to the community that's valuable to them. And so there's a couple of things that we're doing. But I also think that getting people engaged and, you know, so they get involved more with their neighborhood associations and they get this information. And what I have found that's really helpful is, for instance, we just put out a public survey, a neighborhood public survey, and we've gotten 70 responses so far, which is actually pretty good.
Yeah.
And we are going to have a community meeting on September 9th. And each community, we have 4 community meetings a year, but each one has a different theme or topic. And this one is going to be about public safety. So we're taking that survey, we're reviewing what people are interested in most, and we will have professional speakers to talk about it. One of the things we are going to do is talk about how people's votes matter, you know, because that's what I heard a lot from this DA was, you know, your vote matters and you need to pay attention to what you're voting for, you know, and you know, it's easy. Somebody's nice and they seem like they're a good candidate and this and that, but you really got to dig deep into what they believe and what they've actually, you know, supported in the past, because the nicest person could be somebody who does not hold your values or your neighborhood values. And so I think it takes a lot of work to wake people up in your neighborhood. But I think if you mix things like, you know, you have good events, you have regular meetings, like Jen has wonderful meetings, she has really good speakers, you know, it's something that people are interested in listening to. You become that trustworthy source with good information and possibly some calls to action, maybe a little education to simplify things for people, you know, bringing in the experts again helps. I think that that's how we get that word out, you know, because next year's an election season. We've got a new mayor, you know, we're going to be electing a new mayor and we're going to be electing some city council people again. And there's some people on our city council who are very happy with the way that things are right now. They won't tell you that, but they're not going to support funding the police. They're not going to support looking at Proposition 47. There's a lot of things they don't want to support or talk about. And, you know, our approach has always been, and is right now, a balance. Like, you want to make sure that you have enough services for the needy and that they have a good success rate and they work, but you also have to support public safety in the community. Kids should be able to walk through the parks safely, go to school. You know, you shouldn't have people shooting drugs in front of your house or stealing in your local Target or any of that stuff. But so anyway, that's kind of like our approach. And so far it seems to be working. We're getting more attention from people, but it does take, like what Jen's doing tonight, and that is having the experts come in and talk to the people and answer questions. Because a lot of times when you go to a city town hall or something like that, they pre-plan the meeting, they've got their questions, and then they've got somebody filtering all the questions. Here, you're directly talking to that expert and asking them questions. And that is a value our neighborhood associations have over and above any other entity. And that's it.
Thank you very much for that comment, Chris. Anybody else have a comment? what did you think about the information presented tonight? Was it helpful? Does it help to frame or to resolve some of your questions about the way you've seen law enforcement respond or react to situations that you're aware of?
Hello,
Hello.
anybody there?
I know I think people might be thinking that through. Sometimes I do ask those kinds of thinking questions, such as, I sitting in here thinking I may be preaching to the choir. So whenever you're talking about engagement, sometimes you're talking to people who are well enough that it's not a significant change. But if there are any responses like that, I'd like to hear that. What part of the information presented tonight was
Jennifer, I'd just like to make a point. I'm also curious to find out what other neighborhood associations, where they're at right now when it comes to sharing public safety information. And like you said, is this information that you've already shared with the community? Is this something that people already know? Or are you looking at this and thinking of, how can I share it with the community? How can I get this out there? I'm curious to find out
great
like
questions?
what other people, are doing in their neighborhoods.
Yeah,
Would you like to say something?
I thought it was helpful to really go back. Sometimes we get too far, legislation occurs, things happen, we get far down the road, and it's helpful to come back. Okay, what's the basis? What's the beginning? What's the underpinning? And then rather than just stay focused on how it's manifested, sometimes it's really helpful to get back. So thanks for that. Appreciated that, getting back to what is underpinning these changes.
You are more than welcome. Other thoughts? Other activities, other ideas for what can be done to help get the word out?
I'm wondering, does anybody have a website, social media, or do they email their membership?
We do both.
Okay, and what kind of topics do you, like, how many times do you send that email out randomly depending on a topic coming up, or?
They do once a month newsletter, and every 2 weeks, we pay for sheriff's department patrols. So they give a review on the daily times the sheriffs are out, because it's not every day, it's so many days a week, so many, should say, shifts a week. So there's a report given on what's going on in the neighborhood when the sheriffs are working. We only do a live meeting once a year. That's our annual meeting. It'd be nice to do more, but it's a lot of work.
Do you ever do anything like meet and greets, like with your neighbors, like you guys get together at a park or somewhere and have a little potluck or something and just talk about stuff?
I'm also just the head of my neighborhood portion, because there's 2,000 houses. I only have like 85. So yes, I've done some meet and greets just in my little area so that neighbors get to know neighbors.
Do you hear anything about what this DA was talking about? Anything about like regarding crime?
I missed
or
the
is-
meeting, so I didn't get to hear
Okay.
what he said.
But I think as we're talking, we're coming up with some ideas for next steps and a call to action. My purpose in running this meeting and the 3 months before, running a series on public safety, the purpose was to show people that public safety is a multi-tiered conversation. I think many people think public safety is about going to your sheriffs or SacPD and getting them to do something about it. And it turns out that it's far more complicated than that, because people are trying that and it doesn't work. Oh, well, SacPD is worthless. But wait a minute, SacPD is actually the bottom rung of law. We've got city officials, county officials, state legislative, we've got voter initiatives, we've got DAs, we've a lot of things that are affecting how police officers do their job. They won't action where they are not supported, or where the law says they can't. They just won't. So a lot of cases where I'm listening to people say SacPD is worthless or they won't do anything. It's because they've been told not to, either because it's illegal for them to do so and they will be prosecuted for doing it, or that they know that when it gets, once the person is being held, that they may encounter other problems or other difficulties, and they're forever having to balance multiple acts. Now then, perhaps I'm a little oversensitive to these things, but I have been a classroom teacher, a professional public school teacher for 14 years.
Of
And
this crime.
of course I had my
So
classroom
so-
rules, and they were
Yeah. So
But-
these are property crimes and people just trying to survive because the rent is too damn high and people are on drugs and there's no treatment facilities. We talk about people being mentally ill, but where do they go? So all of these solutions are not law enforcement solutions. We seem to want law enforcement to be the all to everything. And a lot of these things are not law enforcement matters at the root cause, but they get called in at the last minute to arrest somebody, put somebody in jail, and they won't hold them in there. And the problem keeps going on and on and on. So until we deal with the root problems of why people end up in jail on drugs, then we're just going to keep doing this and keep spending more money over and over and over again until we try to do something different. Just my opinion.
I think
Right,
Matt
Michaeli,
has something to
thank-
say.
Whoa. Thank you for your comment, Michaeli. But I am going to try to steer this conversation away from where I think it's about to go, which is what should be done about, or what should be done about drug addicts. I'm not going there tonight. I've already been in 4.5 hours of that meeting already today. I'm not going back there tonight. So we can have that conversation in another place, everybody else who now wants to comment. I
You asked
appreciate
for
Michaeli
people's
raising his
opinions
concern
on
and
what we
stating it.
thought, and I told you. You asked what we thought, and I told you. So that's what I think. And people can have their own opinions, and people can have their own ideas.
And you're welcome. You're
and
welcome to
that one
have
is
it.
mine.
I'm not saying. I'm not saying that you cannot comment or have that opinion. I'm actually doing my best to allow you to make your statement and not have it argued. I'm doing my best to leave you a clear space, Michaeli.
Isn't that the discussion tonight? Isn't that what we're
I'm sorry?
discussing tonight? Isn't that what
well,
the
actually,
topic of the discussion is? Law enforcement and the DA and all that kind of stuff? So isn't that right in line with what we're talking about?
Well, actually, I wasn't going to go in depth on any one topic. What I was saying is that it is a multi-tiered process, that I have spent the last 4 months proving it's a multi-tiered process, and that if we want
Agreed.
results,
I agree with you. I absolutely agree with you. So there's a whole bunch of
there we go.
parts
That's
moving.
Yep, you and I are in agreement. I don't need to. I'm really just leaving it right there. That we're just we cannot expect it all to go from one place. We must recognize all the layers of government that we need to work with and all of the responsibilities we need to take. And I've heard Chris talk about that a little bit. I heard Assistant District Attorney talk about that a little bit. Something that has left me appalled in the last couple of years since I started doing this community engagement stuff is that people say they're in support of legislation and they've never read the bill. You cannot, in good faith, say you support any legislation or any voter initiative when you have not read every word of that legislation or that voter
It
initiative.
happens, and that happens every year because every year they put out a freaking dictionary full of bills and all that stuff with deceptive language
Yep.
intentionally to deceive and mislead people. That's done intentionally. And that's done year after year after year.
Yep.
And people make big money to do just that. So when it comes down to the voters and the people who don't have time to read all of that stuff, that may read, the head points or listen to the 30-second sound bites that pop up on TV, that's where a lot of folks, unfortunately, get their information and how they vote. And that's a society thing, but that's just a fact. So,
Well, I think suffering from the fact that people have not been reading their ballot measures and their measures. They are not asking for the actual language and reading it themselves. I'm going to give it little tip out here to the recording, really, that a bill is supposed to be written at about grade reading level. There's not supposed to be a bill out there that anybody with a high school diploma cannot read and understand. And I'm well educated. I worked for
and there
several
are a
years.
whole bunch of folks, and just don't mean to cut you off, but our school systems are horrible, and a whole bunch of people do not read. And if they do read, they don't read very well. So exactly what you're saying, they may write it that way, but a lot of folks do not
And
have.
I have been that person in there
to do
trying
it.
to improve that and make certain that a diploma means something. So I'm
Yeah.
well aware of it, but even with my degrees, even with my years of reading law for an attorney, I have picked up some state Senate bills in recent years that when I sit down and read them, they are absolute gobbledygook to me. So I want anybody
I'm
out
making
there.
that same point. They're garbage when they put them out there. We're not disagreeing. A lot of that shit that they write it that way intentionally. They get paid big money to write things in such a way. So we're
And
not
so
disagreeing.
for
And that's a
the
problem, but
people,
they're allowed to do it.
for the people listening to the recording, if you read a bill and it doesn't make sense, it doesn't mean that you aren't good at reading the legislation. You might be reading it just fine. If it's not clear, it does not, if you do not understand it, it does not deserve your support, because it's supposed to be read so that all of us can understand it. So be very wary of thinking, oh, that all that legal jargon, I don't understand it. I don't know what's going on. I can't judge that. I'm not going to spend my time. Wait a minute, you should. That everybody with a high school diploma should be able to read it. And when people with experience in reading law can't make sense of it and have to go ask a gazillion questions, something's really wrong. And it is going on around us. So I'm Michaeli, I appreciate your comments and your support. We're in total agreement, but I'm also trying to speak for anybody who watches this recording, because our recordings for this meeting have been going up steadily every month. People aren't necessarily coming in for the recording, but they are watching on YouTube and catching up on the news. They don't know these. No. They think that they're wrong with their ability to read and that it's all legal jargon and it's above their head. No, it's not supposed to be above your head. It's supposed to be crystal clear. And if not, you need to get back to the author of that legislation and say, fix it, because you're not doing your job. It's supposed to be written at a 9th grade level. Every Californian with proficiency in English should be able to read it. And many of these bills are also written in other languages. You can't understand it, then it's and it doesn't deserve your support. So Matt, you've had your hand up for a while. I'm gonna go ahead. What are your thoughts?
Oh, just real quick, and I wanted to also kind of agree with, is it Michaeli? Did I say that correctly?
Michaeli.
Michaeli. Okay, sorry about that. I don't have my glasses either, so I'm on my phone and the letters are really small. I was wondering, I know Chris and Jen were in it. How many other people were actually in the city council meeting today at 12? So
Ben and Pat live in the county. So that really leaves Michaeli, and I think we have that answer there.
Okay.
So I know that more than 20 people commented at that meeting.
Yeah, anyways, I was just surprised because I'd heard him mention something about, people can't get into treatment, and Chris had posted it in the chat before I could say something, but I was surprised to hear from our city council that there was absolutely no waiting list for people to get into treatment. So the beds are sitting empty right now. But the people on the streets, I guess, just either they're not being directed there or they just don't want to go there, which is kind of exciting to me. You know, like I said, I'm an ex-addict, because when I went to go get clean, we had a 6 to 8 month waiting list to get in. And so today, to hear that there's no waiting list at any of the treatment centers was kind of uplifting.
Thank you, Matt. Yes, I heard that also, that the residential drug outpatient treatment centers have beds available now. So if anybody is in that business and does referrals, then yes, the county says that they have beds available after today's meeting. As of today, they had beds available. What's going on with that, they hypothesized, but in the end there were some question marks about how they went from a wait list of 600 people last year and nobody wait list today. We're going to have to run that one down, but there's a lot from that meeting that's going to have to be run down over time. Meanwhile, I think probably the part of the conversation that is about how we as neighborhood advocates work to keep our neighborhoods safer. I think that part of the conversation is kind of dying down. But I also want to go with, okay, so what are the next steps? What are we going to do to keep the conversation going? I've done my best to get the conversation going over the last 3+ months. And so I maybe we don't decide it all here, but I think that this is still a greater conversation for us to have about where do we go next to let people know which levels of agency do we need to work with in order to get our concerns addressed. I've done my best to pull together all the different tools and all the different levels into a series of meetings, but now we need to take it back on out to our neighborhoods and help our people know what to expect and who to talk to, and make certain that those connections are growing stronger and stronger, and that we use all of the agencies at our disposal.
I think it just goes back to all of us need to start going to the city council meetings again and being the squeaky wheels, because the voices that are in there now are kind of, just in my opinion, are kind of pushing us into the situation we're in now.
Yeah, and to piggyback on that, I think what's really interesting is city council and county, you can go online and you can get a glass of wine or whatever and watch a meeting from last week or the week before. You can move along on the video. You can look at the items and click on the agenda items you want to listen to. Some of the public comments are very entertaining. Anything else, but I mean, it is important, you know, as neighborhood associations to understand what the city and county are talking about. I don't think anybody here thinks that there's some magic bullet that's going to fix everything. There isn't, but I've always come with the attitude, like, if I could just move the needle a little tiny bit, if I can just get like 2 more people interested or involved, or if I can, you know, make it, you know, somebody understands that, yeah, who we're voting for as their city council member or whatever, that matters. If people know who to call regarding their, you know, when something is happening on their street, you know, if I can create that environment where there's just a little bit of a positive change and people have information and they're empowered, I think that I've done my job. And I think that, you know, for neighborhood associations, there's not much that can, I mean, that's good enough as far as I'm concerned, because, you know, to me, our job is just like, we're all volunteering. You know, we're taking time out of our day, out of our job, out of our busy lives to do this because we have a passion for our communities, and we may have grown up here our whole lives, or we've raised our kids here and we want something better for our community. So doing things like providing information, connecting with our, you know, city, county leaders, our park commissioners, everybody, and doing better things for our community, you know, and having fun events and all that, I think that's good. You know, that's it. We don't need to get into the weeds on stuff, you know, but when it's election season, I do think that people need to pay attention, and we need to be that resource to provide information for people however we can to fix these problems, because yes, our assembly person, hugely important if you're talking about, bills that are being passed. There's several bills they're trying to pass right now, don't look good, and there are people who have been voted in. We don't get to vote on those bills. They're already doing it. So it's not just what comes to us during election season that we got to read and look through. It's the people who we're electing to legislate for us, basically. That's important too.
So I heard city, I heard state, and I bet you have thoughts on county as well.
Hey, Matt, you going to talk?
No.
She's coming, she's coming.
I don't know if I'm supposed to yet. So no.
Yeah,
Yeah, I don't know
because
if
I
I'm
think here in the
supposed to.
city, we forget we've got county too.
Yeah.
I'm in the county and I think our representatives are working hard and trying to do a good job. So they're
must be-
aware of the problems. That's for sure.
Yes, the county supervisors must be doing an outstanding job because they just gave themselves
All right.
close to a $40,000 raise. And so, yeah, they must be doing a great job because as we look around and we can see all of these wonderful improvements that have been made and they are aware. And every time we bring up these issues, yes, we're aware. But the solving part, well, that piece is still down the road there. But
Yeah. That's
yeah,
true.
they keep voting themselves a raise each year and their performance, I guess that's the system.
Oh, yes, I kind of foresee it. Also, there's what we take back to our people in our in our areas, and how we communicate with them. There's all develop amongst neighborhood associations, because most neighborhood associations I know are missing pieces of the conversation. They've got great connections with a couple of agencies and they don't have great connections with others. I understand why that is, because we're volunteers. There's only so much time we have to build all of these connections. Running it's kind of a full-time thing. So I am in support of and encouraging some sort of neighborhood association network that will allow people to focus on the areas where they have good connections and then bring their information to the others who have connections in others, so that we wind up with a person that is better balanced and has more and more complete connections, because no one association can manage it all. We've all got the same problems, but we're short on the time and the energy to address it at all of these different levels. Need to get together, and people who, we need to work to our strengths, so that we have more information and so that we have more connections that work. We can move things a little bit faster, because we are all kind of feeling a little we're running out of time. Things are getting bad. You weren't here to hear that my neighborhood, while we've managed to get the drug dealers off the end of the street for the past month, which is amazing. I think there still is some going on, but it's no longer obvious. We've had a rash of thefts on one of my commercial corridors, and several key businesses have been hit. Now then, they've made a couple of arrests, but meanwhile, I think there was another major fire. So, I am constantly doing this whack-a-mole business. And I know Matt's doing that. I know Chris is doing that. I know Mikaeli is doing that. And so that's why I kind of envision some sort of larger conversation where we all can work together, because I don't have great connections with the Board of Supervisors. I do talk to Patrick Kennedy because he's my guy, but it's just Patrick Kennedy. to address the whole board of supervisor, I could do, but I have to spend with the city because I am in the city. So you can see where my brain is like, why doesn't the county people kind of get together and the city people kind of get together, and then anybody else who's got great state networks together? Why don't we all start holding regular conversations and network and work together so that all of these different levels get addressed? And conversation for another day, but I will leave that for people to think about and settle in for the evening, because I think we're also starting to hit maximum overload in about an hour and a half. So know that I'll be communicating shortly, pretty soon. I do have something in the hopper that I've been working on for a while, so hopefully the rest it's just not ready to unveil in its entirety. But let's get a network going, people. Tell your friends, tell the rest of your boards and your associations, and what we come up with here in the next couple of months, making certain that we get more regular conversations at all the different levels so that we can take more effect and hopefully make the world and not just for ourselves. The goal is to make the world better for everybody. This agenda item, which is agenda item number 2, I believe I'm going to skip a lot of number 3 because I'm not certain how essential it is at this point. I think I'm going to go straight to 4. Upcoming events. Now, Michaeli, I know there was some stuff going on in Meadow. Oh no, it's not Meadow. It is Meadowview. Meadowview's doing some music in the parks and stuff. Can you talk to that a little bit so I can get it on the master list?
If I knew what it was, I would talk about it. I haven't seen any flyers come out about that.
I was.
There is a 102 acres meeting that's coming up soon. Well, they're canvassing for people to be on that committee. But as far as some stuff this summer, I think some stuff is coming out, but I've not seen any flyers yet. But when I see them, I will distribute them widely.
Yes, please, and thank you. I was in the Cabrillo Park meeting yesterday, and my Bangs representative was there and said there was something in early August about the Pinnell Center hosting a music. Oh yeah, Samantha was talking about a music Pinnell Center, and hopefully Samantha will communicate back with me. She's supposed to, so we get on the master list. But yes, please, any other events? Do you know when the 102 acres meeting is? Okay. Matt, do you have an event coming up?
Yeah, not really. September. Lindsay.
We're booking for September. We're almost to July, and I try to book 3 months out.
All right. Well, my wife's the D5 Parks Commissioner, and she has 916 Day coming up. And I know Chris has one too on the 7th, I believe. Ours is on actually September 16th, and we are looking to put 40 trees in over here. We're replacing 10 that blew down in Woodbine. We're putting about 20 over at Airport Little League to improve the shade canopy over there. And we're looking to plant 10 over in Mangan Park. And we have most of the volunteers, but we would love to have a few others, and you know, water and snacks provided. The holes will already be drilled, so all we basically got to do is stick them in the ground. So that's September 16th, 23. And you can message me if you need information on it, and Jen, you're free to share my information as well.
Okay, thank you very much, Matt. And Chris, I got your September 30th Parktober in there on the master list that went out today.
Oh, thank you. Parktoberfest. Yeah, that's over.
Certainly.
It's going to be a William Lang golf cart. Yeah, golf. And that's the big fundraiser. Like it's like a big fun event. but it's also going to be a money event, so I think tickets are $50 or something like that. So, but that's going to be fun. We do have July 14th, Jazz in the Park. Rick Jennings is doing Jazz in the Park in the Land Park Panhandle. And that's free. And that will be from, I think it's 6 o'clock to 8 o'clock. So people can look at our website, landpark.org. And we're also, like Matt was saying, 916 Day. I'll get that date for you, but it will be in September. And it's the same thing. We're planting a bunch of trees in Land Park because Land Park lost a lot of trees. And so we're always looking for more volunteers and people to come out and help with that. We have somebody organizing that tree planting event with Joe Flores, who is our Parks Commissioner. And just a little quickie, something to let people know is that if you're looking for a car-free space for bike riding, roller skating, and all those fun things for kids, we are working on getting that car-free space in Land Park. So we have our Parks Committee team working really hard on that right now. So hopefully we'll be able to announce something like that on our website. So if you guys know families who want their kids to ride their bikes safely or learn how to roller skate or scooter, hopefully we'll have a spot for them in Land Park to do that. That's it.
And don't you have one of your panhandle closed off for roller skating and stuff? One of the roller events coming up?
Yeah, that we weren't able to make that happen. There was just too many issues with that. So what we're doing is we're looking for a permanent spot in Land Park, and there's a particular loop area that we're looking at, and we're working with our Parks Commissioner and with our City Council member and his team to see if we can get that going. So they're all very positive about it, and they want it, and the community wants it, but it also supports outside of Land Park as well. Because I mean, to have a street, like a big, nice, wide, flat street where kids can learn to roller skate, there's a lot of kids who don't have a space like that. There's cars and stuff everywhere, and they can't get out and practice and get outdoors and really get that exercise.
Well, I'm sorry to hear that event has been canceled. The others sound good. Do you want to tell people what Parktober is just a little bit more?
Sure, Parktoberfest. Okay, so it's our first annual Parktoberfest. We used to have Taste of Land Park, which is like a big fundraiser several years ago. COVID pretty much killed that. Our funding is way down, but this is bringing us back. So we have a full events team, and Parktoberfest is going to be at William Land Park Golf. There's going to be beer tasting, wine tasting, German food like, brats and pretzels and music. And there's probably going to be a raffle and giveaways and all kinds of fun stuff. So there'll be more, but you can look at our website, landpark.org. And if you look under events, you'll be able to find some information about Parktoberfest. Right now, we're looking for, we're reaching out. We're going to have a lot of sponsors, but we're at the sponsors phase right now. We're not at the ticket selling phase. Not yet.
Well, that sounds wonderful. The Flyers happen to have a young woman in a dirndl with big beer steins. It looks like a little bit of a German beer fest, but I understand you're rolling in a little bit Taste of Land Park, so it's got a different vibe than an Oktoberfest, which is why it's called Parktoberfest. But yeah, I love the mashup idea. I'm looking forward to being there, and I'm looking forward to hearing how that all plays out. And
the girls
I'm
were
also
really
super
cute.
grateful to.
I'm sorry. The girls were really cute at our last meeting, June 1st. If you go on YouTube, Land Park Community Association on YouTube, we just had a meeting talking about our parks and stuff. And the events girls, they wore the German outfits, and they were like, they had the little steins, and they were talking about and we did a little raffle and stuff. And so they're getting people hyped up about it. I didn't mean to interrupt, but it was really cute. They're really excited about it. Yeah.
Oh, that's good. Don't worry about it. And Pat, please don't feel like you're out in the county, so you can't offer up any summer events. I'm all about getting communities talking about their events. You never know. So
Yeah.
what's going on in your direction?
We don't have anything that we do. I know Carmichael Park usually does. They have music in the park, but I haven't seen any flyers or any information yet on when they are doing those. So.
Okay. You can direct people to go ask Parks about music in the park at Carmichael Park. Excellent. Thank you very much. And so that brings me to Mangan Park. And I've put it into emails, but I'll also say it here. Our ice cream social that was scheduled for last weekend did not happen. The ice cream social was to celebrate the completion of our brand new playground with an and the playground wasn't finished, so we couldn't have our celebration. So the celebration is now scheduled for July 16th from 2. That we've been promised free ice cream and the open from 1 to 5 with a free swim. So July 16th, we're going to do the ribbon cutting the ceremony at 12:30. The pool will open at 1 and it'll be free swim from 1 to 5, but the ice cream social will probably be done by 2 o'clock. Now then, a couple of very nice people, some of whom have the initials MK, have already volunteered to also be grill meisters. So I'm going to do my best to sweet talk our council member into also buying hot dog supplies. And we might also be able to grill some hot dogs to go with that free ice cream. So save July 16th. That's a Sunday at 12:30 to come on out and have ice cream, hopefully hot dogs, and a free swim with us all to admire our brand new completed airport themed playground. And then what else? Oh yes, Mangan Park is participating in 916 Day. Thank you again, Commissioner Lindsay King and Matt King. About the tree planting, and the next Mangan Park Association meeting is going to be, I believe, July 26th. We're going back to our Wednesdays because I don't know how many more of these Tuesday meetings I can do. It turns into like 6 hours of meetings on those days. But we're going back to Wednesday. It is Wednesday, July 26th at 6 p.m. by Zoom. Public safety themed meetings after 4 solid months of public safety conversations and showing people how the conversations sound at different levels and how we talk to different levels of public safety in different ways. And but the July, we're going to do a parks themed meeting. The 916 Day planning, and I'm hoping the disc golf club that operating in the fully functional Charlie Park disc golf course over roughly 30 acres of land. And I hope to have him in to talk about the wonders of Charlie Park's disc golf course. I've left a little time in the agenda for anything else that might arise. So right now we've got about an hour and 10 minutes of agenda time handled, but I'm hoping if somebody else comes up with something that they want to put on the agenda, please let me know about that. I'll be happy to allocate a little bit more time if there's something else that especially needs to be addressed around July 26th. Chris, when's your next LPCA meeting?
It's going to be on hold on. It's going to be on September 9th. So and it's at
not until September.
Yeah, so our community meetings, we have 4 of them a year, and so our next one's September 9th. The doors will open at 6 o'clock. It's at Fairy Tale Town. We usually have some sort of raffle, we have treats, and then we have speakers. And so, like I said, this is a public safety meeting, so we'll probably have a district attorney come and talk. We have somebody from the district attorney's office who's actually on our board, and so she's helping with this particular meeting. But we're also getting a lot of questions about like talking about speeding, because speeding is happening everywhere in every neighborhood. So that is going to be something that we'll probably discuss because that's on the survey. It's a big one. And then also how people can protect themselves or their neighborhood, possibly talk about neighborhood watches. I don't know, but some other things, you know, what I'm hoping is that we have a nice variety of things. So when people leave, they have information and stuff that they can actually use in their home or whatever regarding public safety, and maybe they're have a little more knowledge on what's going on.
Sounds great. Thank you very much, Chris. So it sounds like meetings are held for LPCA isn't having a meeting in July or August, but you'll be back up September 9th and with the results of your survey. That's wonderful. And I really do look forward to hearing the results of your survey.
Yeah.
Mikaeli,
it's
when's
pretty
the
interesting.
next? Oh, sorry.
No, as you say, it's
Oh,
pretty
it is.
interesting.
Yeah, you get to see you get the sneak peek right now. You already know what's going on. I'll have to wait. Mikaeli, do you want to talk about when Meadowview meetings are happening?
Meadowview meetings, third Wednesdays, every third Wednesday, usually about
And are you meeting?
6:30.
Are you meeting?
What's that?
Are you meeting in July and August, or are you taking a break for the summer?
I don't know. You would have to speak with Mr. Jesse Reese and those folks. I am not the one who arranges those. I just attend, but usually we meet once a month.
All right, thank you very much, Mikaeli. I appreciate it. So anybody who's interested in the Meadowview neighborhood, third Wednesday of every month, and go to, I believe it's on the website where the meeting links are, that their meetings are also still by Zoom. So you can touch base with them and that way. And we just lost Pat. So I was just about to ask her if anybody, if she wanted to share about those. Anyway, I think that's pretty much it for the night. I'll put out another complete list of all the events. I'll continue to do that off and on through the summer, but what we've got going on, because we've got a lot of fun stuff to do, and I don't want us to get bogged down in all the tough details that we're all working our way through right now. So thank you very much for coming this evening. It's been great talking to you, great working with you. And we will do this again Wednesday, July 26th at 6 p.m. by Zoom. So God bless and keep you all.
You're all in. Peace and blessings.